The sun is lower than it was a few hours ago, but it hasn't become any kinder. The heat still hangs over the forest. The air is dry. Every breath feels a little heavier than the last. Most people think the hardest part of a run is the beginning. I don't. For me, the hardest part comes much later. It's the moment when my body realizes there's still a long way to go. That's when the negotiation begins. Not with the trail, not with the weather, with myself. A quiet voice appears. You've already done enough. You can slow down. You proved your point. It's amazing how reasonable that voice sounds. It never tells you to quit completely. It only asks for a small compromise, just enough to lower your standard without noticing. I've heard that voice hundreds of times, maybe thousands, and I've learned something about it. It never disappears. You don't defeat it once and move on. You simply become better at recognizing it. That's an important difference, because discipline isn't the absence of temptation. It's the ability to recognize temptation without handing it control. As I follow the trail deeper into the forest, the sunlight slips between the branches. Long shadows begin to stretch across the path. The day is slowly changing. The run keeps moving. Life feels like that sometimes. Everything around us changes. Our mood changes. Our energy changes. Our confidence changes. But our direction doesn't have to. I've stopped expecting every day to feel inspiring. Most meaningful work isn't inspired. It's intentional. There's a difference. Inspiration is a visitor. Intention is a decision. Visitors leave. Decisions stay. When I first started this journey, I thought success belonged to people with extraordinary talent. Now I think it belongs to people who simply refuse to stop when stopping becomes attractive. Not dramatic, not glamorous, just stubborn in the right direction. I've come to appreciate ordinary persistence. The kind nobody notices. The kind that never goes viral. The kind that quietly repeats itself day after day until people call it consistency. We celebrate breakthroughs, but breakthroughs are usually built on routines that look completely unremarkable. Nobody applauds another ordinary training session. Nobody celebrates another promise kept. Yet those invisible moments become visible results. That's why I no longer judge a day by how exciting it was. I judge it by one question. Did I live according to my standards today? Sometimes the answer is uncomfortable. Good. Uncomfortable answers often lead to meaningful changes. Comfortable lies never do. I've learned that being honest with yourself is one of the greatest competitive advantages you can have. Because honesty removes confusion. You stop pretending you're working harder than you are. You stop blaming circumstances for decisions that belong to you. You stop waiting for motivation to rescue you. Instead, you begin building something much stronger. Trust. Every honest decision becomes another brick. Another run. Another difficult conversation. Another moment where nobody was watching, but you still chose the harder path. Brick by brick, you build a person your future self can rely on. The forest teaches patience better than any book ever could. These trees didn't grow because one season was perfect. They survived every season. Hot summers, cold winters, strong winds, heavy rain. Growth wasn't interrupted by difficult weather. It happened because they kept adapting. Maybe we're supposed to do the same, not asking life for easier conditions, but becoming stronger inside the conditions we've been given. As I continue running, I notice something. The finish line hasn't become any closer because I wanted it to. The trail doesn't shorten because I'm tired. Reality doesn't negotiate. And honestly, I'm grateful for that. Because if reality changed every time we felt uncomfortable, we would never become stronger than our emotions. Sometimes the greatest gift life gives us is refusing to lower the standard. Maybe that's why I'm still here, still running. Not because every run feels good, because every run reminds me that the person I become is shaped by what I choose when continuing no longer feels convenient. And that's exactly where real growth begins. The farther I run, the quieter everything becomes. The sounds of the forest are still there. leaves moving in the wind, birds settling before night, the steady rhythm of my footsteps. But inside my head, something changes. The conversation becomes simpler. Earlier, my mind was full of questions. Now, there's only one. Will I keep my standard? I've started believing that every day asks us this question in a different way. Not only while running, at work, at home, in the promises we make, and in the promises we quietly break. Most of us don't fail because we lack ability. We fail because we slowly negotiate with our own standards. Just this once, just today, I'll make up for it tomorrow. Those words sound harmless, but repeated often enough, they become a habit, and habits quietly build a life. I've learned to pay attention to those quiet negotiations because they almost always happen when nobody else is around. Nobody knows if I stop for longer than I planned. Nobody knows if I cut the run short. Nobody knows if I give less than I'm capable of. But I know, and that's enough. The relationship I have with myself is built in those invisible moments. Every decision leaves evidence. Evidence that I can trust myself, or evidence that my own promises don't mean very much. That realization changed the way I think about discipline. Discipline isn't something I perform for other people. It's a private agreement, an agreement that my actions will match my values, even when nobody is keeping score. The older I get, the more valuable that agreement becomes. Because confidence doesn't come from hearing people believe in you. It comes from collecting enough evidence that you believe in yourself. Evidence is powerful. It can't be argued with. When you've shown up 100 times, one difficult day doesn't convince you that you're weak. When you've kept your word over and over again, temporary doubt loses its authority. Your history becomes stronger than today's emotion. That's why I keep running. Not to prove anything. To remember. To remind myself what I'm capable of when I refuse to negotiate with excuses. I've noticed something else about this forest. Nothing here is trying to rush. The trees don't hurry toward the sky. The river doesn't force its way around every stone. Everything moves with quiet persistence. Maybe we've made progress seem more complicated than it really is. We imagine transformation as one huge breakthrough. But nature doesn't work that way. Neither do people. A tree grows a little every day. So do we. The problem is that we expect to notice the change immediately. When we don't, we become impatient. We think nothing is happening. But the most important changes rarely announce themselves. They accumulate. One decision, one conversation, one run, one difficult afternoon when you chose to continue instead of choosing comfort. Those moments don't feel historic. Years later, you realize they were. As the trail bends through the trees, I catch myself smiling. Not because this run feels easy. It doesn't. I'm smiling because I remember who I used to be. Someone who waited for motivation. Someone who believed confidence had to come first. Someone who thought difficult seasons meant something was wrong. Now I understand something different. Difficult seasons aren't interruptions. They're invitations. Invitations to become more patient, more resilient, more dependable. Not someday. Today. Right here. One honest step at a time. The light is beginning to change. The sun is still above the trees, but it has lost some of its strength. Long shadows stretch across the trail. The forest feels calmer now than it did when I started. Maybe I'm calmer too. I've noticed something about long runs. They rarely give me new answers. Instead, they remind me of truths I already knew but slowly forgot. One of those truths is simple. Life doesn't ask whether you're comfortable. It asks whether you're committed. Those are two very different questions. Comfort depends on conditions. Commitment depends on values. Conditions change every day. Values shouldn't. For a long time, I believed that becoming stronger meant learning how to push harder. Now I think real strength begins somewhere else. It begins with learning when to stop arguing with yourself. Every unnecessary negotiation steals energy. Every excuse demands attention. Every compromise asks for another compromise. Eventually you spend more effort deciding than doing. I've been there. Maybe you have too. The strange thing is that action is usually easier than hesitation. Taking the first step is hard. Taking the next one is natural. Momentum has a quiet power. That's why I never tell myself I have to conquer the entire trail. I only need to take the next honest step, then the next. Before long, I look back and realize I've already gone farther than I thought I could. Life works the same way. Nobody builds a meaningful life in one incredible day. It's built through ordinary evenings like this one, when nobody is watching, when nobody is counting, when the only person who knows whether you kept your word is you. I've stopped chasing motivation because motivation has never been loyal. Some days it arrives early. Other days it never shows up at all. Standards are different. Standards don't ask how I feel. They quietly remind me who I decided to become. That decision has carried me through injuries, through setbacks, through seasons when everything seemed uncertain. Not because I was fearless, because I refused to let temporary emotions write permanent decisions. As I reached the final part of this trail, I realized something that has changed over these past months. When this journey began, I was trying to prove that I could stay consistent. Now consistency is no longer the goal. It's becoming part of who I am. That's a quiet transformation, the kind that doesn't happen overnight, the kind nobody notices until it's already part of your identity. I think that's how lasting change always works. You repeat a small action so many times that it stops feeling like effort. It becomes your normal. And once your standards become normal, discipline stops feeling like a struggle. It becomes freedom. Freedom from constant negotiation. Freedom from waiting for the perfect mood. Freedom from depending on motivation to decide your future. As I slow my pace, I take one last look at the trail behind me. Nothing extraordinary happened today. No record. No dramatic breakthrough. Just another evening. Another run. Another promise kept. Years from now, I probably won't remember today's pace. I won't remember exactly how hot it was. But I'll remember something more important. I showed up. Again. And sometimes that's the only victory you need. Because every time you show up, you cast another vote for the person you're becoming. Not the person you hope to be someday. The person you're choosing to become today. One decision. One run. One day at a time. The trail ends. The lesson doesn't. Tomorrow there will be another opportunity to choose. Another chance to keep my word. Another chance to become just a little stronger than I was yesterday. And that's enough. Because a meaningful life isn't built by finishing once. It's built by refusing to stop before your story is finished. I'll see you on the trail tomorrow. Same time, same choice. This is Run to Evolve. One day, one run, one lesson, no excuses.